the theme of moving beyond stifling stuckness, for want of a better phrase, comes up in all kinds of interesting ways throughout these songs. So at the very beginning of the record, I'm tired of being pushed around, ready to shout out loud. I'm ready. There's this sense of readiness. We were talking about how a lot of the songs that are well beyond the previous act, that Hey Burners do have higher BPMs. There's a kind of sense of momentum, and we're moving. But then at the end of the record, Up All Night, there's a sense of kind of careening. So once we are like allowing ourselves
that's interesting, because that's kind of an out of control song.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's like
it's artfully out of control.
It's really a party song too, because partying can feel like a way of expressing yourself, but sometimes it's really like avoiding stuff.
Right. Yeah. One can find oneself, and one can lose oneself in all kinds of different ways.
And because I do feel like certain like illegal substances have helped me discover some things, but also they've also shown had some weird stuff come out that I'm like, whoa, scary. Yeah. So it has a good side and a bad side, and you can take things too far for sure, and you have to figure out what is. So I'm trying to express myself and I get to say whatever I want, but then you're like, is that really who I am though? Just saying whatever I want to. Yeah. And what is this middle ground? Okay, so I'm trying to fight and be I want to say whatever, anything that comes out of my head. But then you can hurt people that way, and you can be offensive, and you can not mean stuff and just blurt it out. So it's that kind of finding that middle ground of being true to yourself, and not going too far just to kind of, I feel like you can say this better than I can, but kind of finding that middle, that balance, is always hard of living within, trying to defy what the expectations are, but also still living to your truth of ultimately you do want to be a good person, right?
And I think being able to cultivate enough this kind of space between the stimulus and the response, where I can recognize, oh, okay, I'm feeling anxious, or whatever it is. And the reason why I love Up All Night is because rather than it just being a kind of out of control expression of someone who's caught up in the momentum, it's an artful song that's dramatizing that state of being, and there's this sense of yearning when one is ready to say what one thinks. That same character who's ready to do that and who is doing that is also wanting there to be enough space to know what's happening with themselves, to be able to, for the acceptance piece to come in.
Yeah, and I feel like that's funny you talk about space, because I feel like the world we live in right now is very reactionary, and they don't really allow people to have that space and kind of figure these out, what is, give things time to sort of, marinate and come up with the real true expression, rather than things are immediately, people are shut down, I just feel like the space isn't there. We don't allow ourselves space, and we don't allow other people space too, before writing people off.
Yes, exactly. But then there's an interesting intervention with music that's doing what this music is doing. Again, just sticking with Up All Night just a little bit longer, it highlights, here are the various things that my body is doing. My nose is doing this, my other parts of my body are doing these other things. Yeah. And there seems to be some kind of relationship between staying up all night, doing what I've been doing, and that being the case. Rather than going into kind of shaming mode or going into this is bad, or then there's just the being with.
But it's that kind of lifestyle that's goes against the grain.
Yes.
I feel like there's always this piece of me that's trying to fit in the conventional way and then trying to break out. And so that song is kind of it is, I don't know, it is like I'm breaking out. But then because you are trying to, the reason you're not doing the conventional things is because it doesn't fit you. And so you're breaking out because you're trying to fight against something.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
and
Yeah.
this is something like it's hard to see in your, you know, just a societal pressure, you know. And so this partying, like for me, I found that partying is sort of me trying to like break out like of all these like expectations and all this like, this is the way you live a life, and you have these things that make you, you know, a productive person in the world. And so it is kind of like this party is kind of like this fight against that, but then it's also kind of a damaging thing on its own too. It's like, because you can't focus, you know, it's like if you're just, you know, everything's falling apart, that's not going to be helpful either.
You're on the roller coaster constantly.
Yeah, it's kind of like, but it is against, like, it is this fight. This partying for me is sort of this fight against the conventional, against being like stuck, against, like, I get to say what I want, like, I get to be who I want to be, but then there's kind of this negative side too.
And the convention and the being stuck, it's not just boring. So we have convention and etiquette referred to, and, but that's all. You have the discernment to see that there's something that's far from innocent going on with the person who is referred to in the early songs that has the good reputation. I want a reputation by implication. Like, I'm happy to have the reputation of the party going wild, bad person. As an alternative to this well-crafted individual that we've learned not to trust.
Because they've made you be, if you're not this, then you're that. And it's like, who really wants like a bad reputation, you know, for real? But it's like sometimes people force you because they're like, this is good, this is bad. So it's like if you're in between, you're just pushed to the bad.
Right.
So you're just like, well, I might as well go all out with this bad reputation.
Yeah, exactly. There's the moment of choosing, well,
if you've kicked me out of this good person thing, so I guess the only option I have is this bad reputation. Now I got to own this bad reputation. But that's like an unfair thing that I feel like we do to people is like, we don't let them have this like middle place of like, you can have these pieces and still be a good person, you know? You can.
But one of the oldest songs in this collection, Good Girl, is even already acknowledging I'm a good girl who, like, I might seem to do bad things, but I think there's an earnestness to, but I am essentially good.
Mean, because what is good, right?
Exactly,
it's like, I mean, I think it's trying your best to be a good person. And when you fail, you try to learn from that, and you try again. You try, you know, it's like we don't like allow people to make mistakes, really, you know, and then we categorize them as, you know, I mean, like our system, it's like once you have something on your record, it's like people can't get jobs, you know? It's like they're stuck being a criminal for life. People reform, people change, people grow, and it's like, I just hate how we're so quick to put people into these two categories.
Absolutely.
And it's scary actually, because you're really like closing the door on helping people grow, you know?
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
It's definitely like, I don't know how well that's expressed in there, but it is like, you know, underneath it all is continually trying to find your place and like still not let these things define you, like these labels.
Everything that you were just saying for me brought to mind Ha, which again is kind of close to the type, if any song title track.
Blood Running is in that song.
And that opens, you fed me your love, knowing it was poison. And I think the condition of knowing oneself to be being fed poison is an apt metaphor for a lot of these songs, being aware that we're in an unhealthy context, and there are not a lot of shining examples of good health. There's a lot of people who might have good etiquette and who might follow the convention and know how to pass as good. But one can see, okay, well, that person is actually feeding me poison. And consistently, I think the songs, the honesty that you refer to, again, in the kind of account of yourself in the one sheet here, I see my music as empowering for females because of my honesty. I think that the transparency and the seeing what one sees and expressing it and allowing it to take the form sometimes of raw expressions of lust, rage, anger, and so on, but also not putting yourself in the box where that's the only thing that's happening.
Right.
And allowing the sadness to be there too. The kind of conclusions that you've been coming to and sharing in our conversation, where did the process of coming to those conclusions, where did that come in relation to writing these songs?
Well, I feel like a lot of these songs are written in the emotional state.
Yes.
So I don't know if like the lessons are in them.
Yes.
Really.
But the being with, you're able to be with those experiences, presumably with the help of the cathartic experience, the kind of the songwriting is not unrelated to the therapy.
It is like it is how I express what's going on in my life.
Yes.
You know, and it's to the extreme, I would say, but so I don't know. I think probably with every song, you know, the more I grow, every song is going to have like aspects of that, even in the emotional state of things. So I guess, but I do love this idea of sharing that before you even have thought how to handle the emotion. This is like the emotion like right off the bat, and it's not handled yet.
Yes.
Because you are angry, you are hurt, you know, and you haven't figured out how to deal with it.
Yes.
You're just gonna like, you know, scream it out. And so I don't know if there's lessons in that, except maybe just the acknowledgement that we all have that.
Yes.
And to know maybe there's not, like we said, as much like shame around that, because if you're not shaming something, then you can say, okay, I am angry, but like, what is it? I'm hurt that this person doesn't love who I am. And I tell them over and over that I'm hurting, and they still do the same things to continue to hurt me.
Right.
You know, and so, I mean, so I guess.
Oh, they even, to reference Heart again, they see the hurt and they think it's funny. And it's not funny.
Well, they don't take it seriously.
They don't take it seriously, yeah.
They're like, oh, you're crazy, or you're over dramatic, or, you know, kind of like invalidate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your feelings.
The expression.
And
of the authentic
and the break
emotion.
me is that kind of same thing. You break me over and over. That idea of just kind of not being seen, not being heard, not having this experience of being invalidated. I guess they're not, I don't feel like they're like teaching people any of like my therapy things, but I think to heal from different trauma or experiences, you can't look at it and like, I shouldn't feel that way, or you know, you need to be like, having guilt and shame is not, you know, it's like, okay, if we do that, sometimes we just avoid even looking at those things. So I feel like just by sharing these kind of like crazy, like almost like rants or expressions, you know, that are extreme for like a lot of people would feel that they're extreme. I feel like it's still like as a listener would allow you to say like, okay, I've kind of been there.
Yeah.
You know,
or
and
even
then,
through my extreme resistance, like, oh, I don't like that. That's too angry. I'm not angry. I don't like anger.
Yeah.
It creates the possibility of like, well, why do I feel that way? Oh, actually, it's because I don't have the opportunity to express my anger.
And or just like if, you know, you're kind of relating, you think, Okay, well, I guess I'm not a terrible person for kind of, maybe going crazy in a relationship, or, maybe there's more acceptance, therefore you can work on what's actually making you crazy,
Yes.
So I don't know if I'm not actually sharing like real therapy advice in the songs. It's just kind of the raw emotion. But maybe that allows people to feel less ashamed when they have that.
I think so. Yeah. The insights that you're having just as a human at the moment, is that affecting your songwriting?
Affecting my what?
Songwriting.
Oh, I don't think so yet. I haven't been writing as much just because.
You're putting a record out.
Yeah, I mean, we've just been trying. I've been, the band has been. I mean, I'm still building the band. I mean, we just got a new guitarist, and a new drummer, and so it's like just working on getting my bandmates familiar with the songs and trying to learn some new songs. I mean, it's just like been very consuming.
Absolutely.
So it's hard to write when I'm kind of so much working on what we already have.
Yes.
But yeah, I did write a song the other day, and I would say it was also like a kind of fighting, kind of raging song a little bit. That was just like, you don't know me, is like the whole thing.
Yep.
Don't pretend you do. Don't pretend you know what I've been through. That idea of being like misinterpreted,
It's infuriating.
Yeah, and like just one piece of yourself, like the puzzle thing, doesn't say who you are. And people like to use one part, like this person did this, and this is all they are, is this. But they don't see the rest of the puzzle.
Yep.
And it's like, you can say, hey, we got to work on this puzzle piece that's kind of, I think you're misunderstanding here. But it's like, you can't judge the whole puzzle by just this one piece.
Yeah,
and we like to do that as a society, I feel like.
Yeah. In part, understandably, because it feels good to sense like I can play something, I can make sense of something. But when the thing that one is trying to make sense of is a complex human, there's something.
Yeah, I mean, I find it hard when people can call anybody out on anything, because it's like we all have these things. It's like we are so complicated.
The jigsaw puzzle metaphor is something that we brought in when, before the interview, I referenced internal family systems and the idea of there being different parts of me will come out in different contexts.
Yeah.
And I referenced a new book with an introduction by Alanis Morissette, I think not coincidentally a musician, not coincidentally a musician that lots of listeners have been able to relate to, again, like the raw emotion and go on the journey with
because she has like what was that song?
You
like,
ought to know
I
it.
hope you feel it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm here. I mean, that's like to remind. And I remember
of the mess you left when you went away. I'm a mess.
I remember
Here
feeling
I am being
that,
the mess, expressing
like that song, and was like, yeah, like I get that hurt. And that someone just leaving you in that pain, it's so
and
hurtful.
that song is called "You Ought to Know."
Yeah,
and it's like, you don't get me. I have this unseen pain, and you ought to know that I am this mess, and you have played a role in me being this mess.
Yeah, right.
And I'm not going to hide it. Because
you should see this.
Yes,
You don't
exactly.
get to walk away from this mess.
It will be immortalized.
Yeah,
in this
I mean,
song.
there is a piece of that's it's like, it's like we don't like to look at other people's hurt either, because it's like, I don't want to. Yeah, it's so uncomfortable. It's like, ugh, I don't want to hear this.
But so Alanis Morissette writes the introduction to the new book, No Bad Parts is the name of the book.
That one you should send me the No Bad Parts. There's another one that
good.
Brooke said too.
Yeah,
that one.
That book is called Emotional Agility.
Okay,
and
those
just the
two.
metaphor of agility. So it's the idea of like being with the emotion and then having the agility to recognize, to relate with the emotion as the beacon.
Yeah.
And not to be stuck on the roller coaster.
Yeah, because you want to move through it.
Yeah, not to be
ultimately.
repressing it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You want to
the only
feel
way
it
out
and
is
go
through.
through it. Yeah. Yeah. But okay, so back to the
But no bad parts.
no bad.
The
yeah,
idea,
I like that
and
a
Alanis
lot.
Morissette writes in the introduction to that book that she's been doing parts work for a long time, recognizing, okay, this part of me that comes out when I'm in a certain context and I'm agitated, then maybe like the character from the final track on the record, I become this like wild party-going person. But what's really going on? Can I be with that long enough and bring love and acceptance to that, and allow that part to grow? There's no bad part. That is serving me in some way. That's grown as a coping mechanism.
And we just don't want to, because like I have a lot of like social anxiety. I never really thought I did, because I really was work very hard at being extroverted and
you
it's all
might
fun,
come
blah,
across
blah.
as very gregarious.
Yeah, but I actually have like a lot of anxiety when I go out, and if it's like in groups, if there's like I'm good with one-on-one, like there's, but a group, all of a sudden I'm like, who am I? What's my role in this? Like, and especially if I'm not playing music, I'm like, I don't know who I am.
Right.
If I'm not a performer. So it is kind of
I can't get away with, I can't express the raw emotion here, but maybe that's what people are expecting me to be doing. Because
and you're not the star. I think that's the thing. It's like, it's not your show.
Right.
So sit down. But sometimes I have a hard time when it's not my show to just know like, well, who am I when it's not the show?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is, and that discomfort is something I hate. I hate being uncomfortable. So I have like noticed that I do, like, not to trigger anybody, but I do drink a lot of alcohol to hide that. And I'm realizing that that's repression as well. And it's not been a healthy way, that I have to sit in the discomfort, which I don't want to do. I'm like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to feel this. How can I escape?
Right,
So it's like, it is hard to feel the bad parts, or what you consider bad.
The part that gets labeled
But maybe
bad.
you say, like, what we work on, or what I've worked on, and therapy is just kind of like, maybe you can be more curious. Like, what is it that's making me uncomfortable? Like, who do I think I have to be in this situation? Just kind of asking yourself questions rather than trying not to feel it. Just wondering, why am I so uncomfortable? Like, it's like, oh, I'm worried that these people don't like me. Well, I mean, they might not like me. I mean, that's the truth. And like, what happens if they don't? There's still people that I have great friends. I've realized the last couple of weeks that I have amazing people in my life. And, sometimes the few like bad people in your life are like, you're like, nobody likes me because of these, few people.
Or the people that are judging, that are most clearly openly judging.
Yeah, and you're like, well, maybe those aren't my people, and
I'm worthy of love, and I'm receiving love from this person and this person.
Yeah, like so many people if you look at it. And so it's just, feeling like kind of the discomfort is always tricky. And I am working on that, because I try my darndest not to feel it.
So let's say we've come to the conclusion that the wild party persona is like a coping mechanism.
I would say.
But it doesn't. It was realizing.
I do like fun and gregarious, but
yes,
like
me too.
Being out of control and like.
I'm not intending to stop going to parties.
Yeah.
Parties are fun.
But like kind of being a wreck, like.
Yes.
When it gets to that point where you're kind of just like a drunk or something.
Yeah.
Then you've gone too far, right?
But recognizing that persona is a coping mechanism doesn't make it go away, and then dismissing it as just a coping mechanism also doesn't make it go away.
Right.
So, and Alanis Morissette's experience was more like, if you apply the wisdom of this, in this case, internal family systems, what we do once we recognize, okay, this is just a part of me, one of the jigsaw pieces, and it's acting out. So we go to that part, and we feel into the bigger thing, the presence of my authentic self beyond that, and we ask the part, what do you need? what's going on, and what do you think about, say, this other part? And if the part's like, oh, I hate this other part of you, like I'm being like this because that part is inauthentic and it's conventional and stupid, then we know that there's not the kind of the loving, the part, the accepting part,
right?
We want to welcome that to be there. So we thank the part that's acting out, okay, thank you for trying to look out for me.
Yeah.
I am listening to you. You don't need to be running the show at the moment.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
We can
Please
accommodate you a little differently.
Step aside. We're not going to dismiss you.
Yeah.
And then that opens up the space for that part to grow. And I think that
that's like I'm gonna go back and listen to this. This is like therapy in itself. I'm like, well, that's a good way of seeing that. Yeah.
I think music is such an important part of a balanced life. We were talking about balance. That we both like the idea of going to the party and also like having the meaningful connections.
Yeah, having like a home life of some sort.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly.
Doing laundry and washing your dishes. Taking care of yourself. That would be nice too.
And ideally, with as part of a home where everyone is doing their part.
Yeah.
To out of the love of enjoying having the happy home.
Yeah.
We both we like the idea of both of these things possible. And
existing together.
Existing together.
And it is really hard because I think initially as a younger person, I felt like I was rejecting this
convention etiquette.
Yeah, because I felt like there was no way I could be myself, do music, and still have that.
Yes.
And now as like an adult, I realize I've, maybe gone the extreme the other way. And now I'm looking at this, family life and saying, that looks beautiful. Like, can I still have that?
That's in Beautiful Girl, isn't it? I'm not saying that I don't want my picture on the cover of a magazine, but with all my fears, add some years, I'm going to need a little bit more, you see. That's quite earnest, I think. It's like, it's fun to be beautiful.
And to be the show and to be admired and to be famous, but it's like, that's not going to be enough because you need the other kind of community of people. Yeah.
There's a lot of reflection on what one wants, what one needs throughout the record. It really is moving in the direction of the conclusions. It's doing the groundwork, I think, for the conclusions that you're sharing today. And there isn't this complete divorce between the expressiveness of the music and then the reflective working through the emotions and coming to the conclusions. The music is beginning the journey of reflecting on, okay, what do I want? What do I really need? How do I give myself enough space to distinguish between those two? And how do I course correct and be with my growing imperfect self lovingly to allow that recalibration. So to go from, when I'm with this person, I don't keep my commitments, and to go from the initial anger, you make me not keep my commitments, which is a lyric.
Yeah, when you lose yourself to somebody else.
To I choose to be the person that does keep that commitment.
Yeah.
And like making a record, putting out a record, like that is a case in point.
Yeah,
but then
you have to kind of care for yourself.
Yeah, that's
definitely.
Who I am. I commit to this, and being judged by this external person or being perceived in X way by this external person is not actually, it's not going to get in the way of me maintaining this commitment to myself.